Женя?
Corroborate.
Corroborate.
Corroborate. You need to corroborate information by looking at other research to see if it reaches the same conclusions.
Well, thank you. Anya?
Conclusive. Just because there is some evidence, it doesn't mean that the results of the research are conclusive.
You've got 2 minutes to look through the article. Just read it to yourself. I'm answering the questions. If you're doing it, please, questions in exercises 2 and 3. Now please, join into groups, the same groups, to answer the questions from exercises 2 and 3. 2 minutes, not more. Just the information about. Have you found all the answers? Exercise 3. Exercise 3 already? Well, thank you. No, please. I I see that all of you have found the answers to the questions in exercise 2, which was not a problem. But in exercise 3, the third question. Well, please read it aloud. Dasha Matrionina. Exercise 3, question number 3.
Exercise 3. Is there anything that makes you question the conclusions
From the article.
from the article?
You're welcome. Any questions? Max?
Is it? Can chocolate cause harm for our health?
Health. Damage our health. Ruin our health. Any other ideas about the article? Paul?
Maybe we should all eat more chocolate.
To become Nobel laureates.
But we all know the well-known fact that if we eat for about 1 kilogram of chocolate, we will die.
Well, but remember, it was a critical reading of the article. If I would, I would listen to a science journalist who is going to help us with understanding how to read critical articles better. Pay attention to the following things: the news outlet, the source and quotes, the references to scientific research, the context and purpose, correlation and causation.
I'm Karen Smith. I'm a journalist for Science Magazine, and I work in the multimedia team. So I make podcasts and videos, and I also write occasionally bits and bobs of news. And I have a science background. I did a neuroscience master's, but then I found science to be requiring a little bit too much patience, so I've switched to journalism, which is a bit more fast-paced. Science reporting in newspapers really varies depending on the newspaper or the outlet, because it could be a TV broadcast that we're talking about. A lot of journalists are really short on time, and that makes it quite hard for them to do the reporting they might want to do, speak to the right people, go to the source of the story, ask people who were at an event what they thought of what happened, what actually happened, or in the case of a scientific paper, ask the scientist, phone them up, that sort of thing. Not everyone has time to do that, and so they end up perhaps parroting the information that is in a press release, for example. I think good reporting is when a reporter has time to go to the source, ask them the questions that they really need to answer in order to get all of their facts straight, and then hopefully put those facts in a sensible order in the article they're writing. So that involves taking the time to talk to the scientists, perhaps, talk to other scientists who haven't been involved in the work, and ask them what they think of the research. Ask them about the implications of it. Try and think of other questions that you might not necessarily first come across. Try and get a different perspective. When a piece of content is released, say it's a press release from a university about a new piece of science, one newspaper might write about it, and then several other channels, internet sites, YouTube, all of these kinds of content channels and other media might take that content and repurpose it for their own ends. So say there was a video of a worm doing a crazy thing associated with this scientific paper on worm behaviour. Well, that might get taken, that video, and embedded on YouTube, uploaded to YouTube, without any context. So then people don't know exactly where it came from, what the point of the research originally was. They don't have enough information to understand that piece of research properly. All they see is a worm. The article about chocolate and intelligence, I would really love to believe that there is a relationship between the amount of chocolate one eats and how clever one is. But I don't agree with the conclusion that the article drew, or that the original research might have drawn, because this is a correlation between chocolate eating in a particular country and the amount of Nobel Prize winners that country has. It's not necessarily even a correlation between chocolate and intelligence, because Nobel Prize winners are only one measure, perhaps, of how clever your country is. You might just have 5 clever people who've all won Nobel Prizes and no other clever people, for the sake of argument. And as we probably already know, correlation is not cause. So we can't really attribute a cause of chocolate eating to being cleverer. For example, what if there was another factor that influenced both of those things? Say how rich a nation is means that people have more disposable income, they buy more luxury items like chocolate, they eat more chocolate, and also that nation, because it's richer, invests more money in education and ends up with more Nobel Prize winners. So those are some of the reasons why I didn't think the conclusion was necessarily valid. Although the conclusion is based on a correlation and not a causal mechanism, there are some things that suggest the article is reliable. The research was done by a scientist at a good university. I actually looked him up on the internet. He exists, and he did do this research. And the article was originally published, the research was originally published in a respected scientific journal called the New England Journal of Medicine. When students are reading a science article critically, they should look for many of the same things that a reporter might look for in thinking about the same article. For example, who has been quoted in this story? Is it the scientists themselves? Is it possible to research that scientist a little bit, perhaps using the internet, find their webpage? Do they often do research like this? And are they well known for it? Is it published in reputable journals? If this is an article about a scientific paper, perhaps there's a link to the paper in the article itself, and you could go and have a look for yourself at the research article and see if the conclusions match up.
Well, thank you. What is your advice? How should we read articles critically? Firstly,
We should be sure that this we can agree with these scientists, and this scientist is quite famous, reliable.
Reliable. Anything else? Kirill? Katya?
Maybe you could find in the article the name of the journal where it had been had published, and match them up together to see if it is the same. Maybe they align.
Thank you. You are practically right. So we have just learned, or we have just done our best to learn 21st century skills. Well, please, Diana, read. Which ones?
To questions how scientific facts are interpreted in news articles. To identify what to look for in science articles to decide how reliable they are.
And
To
critique
an article.
To critique an article. And this is the answer to the third question. What have I learned today? So, Anne, please.
Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch which illuminates the world.
Well, thank you. This is our lesson is going to its end, and I think you have to keep it in mind because judging by our Twitter, you wish you understood physics better, and you wish you had better marks in maths, and I wish you took a more active part in our scientific society grinding. So your home task will be connected with reading articles critically. You can choose either of them. You see? And the second task is to create a word cloud on the topic science. By the way, what can you say about our lesson today? What adjectives can we use?
It was enormous.
Right.
And it is
Well, thank you.
useful for us.
Useful
Full of
and
new
inform.
information.
So in general, it was scientific, and I hope it was thought-provoking. So to see how word clouds work, you can go to word clouds generator. It's well, just look, find. You can choose